Salutations readers, welcome back to my channel. My name is Nkechi. For today we're going to talk about the best books that I read in 2024. So just like last year, this is going to be like a book genre award kind of way, because I read a lot of good books this year, honestly. I still have read some more mediocre, disappointing books, but this time around though, I still have found some pretty good books. I've even found a few books as well that have become all-time favorites. Not a lot this time, which I'm a little bit sad about, but I still have found enough though in the best of their respective genre choices. But let's actually just get right to it. So first category is best nonfiction. So I do have two books in here because I have managed to read a few nonfiction works this year. So first up, I do have The 100 Years' War on Palestine, A History of Settler Colonialism and Resistance 1917 to 2017 by Rashid Khalidi. This book definitely gave me a way more of like an accessible, digestible history on Palestine for like the past 100 years. And I really do recommend it. It's very much introductory. It gave me enough information to really understand how Palestine became into settler colonialism. So like from the British occupation, when the Great Britain occupied it, and then the formation of Israel and all that stuff, and the U.S. involvement. It gave me a lot of good topics. It gave me more insight in that, and it also regarding resistance as well, like resistant movements and that part. It also gives me perspective on the Nakba of 1948 and also of 1967 on all that, and how a lot of the talking points, the Zionist talking points have always been there since the actual formation of Zionism itself. And even it has some critiques as well as certain Palestinian leaders. So it really does give a really good overall picture on Palestine and how it became a settler colonialism apartheid state, and occupied, and hoping for also a hopeful future of where Palestine is free. So I really do recommend this one, and I'll always hold on to my time with reading this one. And I do hope I get a chance to also reread it soon as well, just to have some opportunity to really go back into it, maybe take my time a little bit more, and also annotate it, because I did not get a chance to annotate it. I just listened to it via audio, and it's also really good. I do recommend the audiobook as well. And also a book for best nonfiction is There's Always This Year on Basketball and Ascension by Hanifa Durkheeb. This is the first Hanifa Durkheeb work I've started and finished, and I really enjoyed this one. This is definitely part sports, essay, talk, and part memoir, and I really like on how Hanifa Durkheeb was able to connect basketball in itself, the actual sport, but also personal in his life, and how that connects to with community and love, and this ascension of higher, this sort of some sense of a ascension of of fame and stuff with certain basketball players, and also from people from his own community ascending as well, and what that means. I really do appreciate Hanifa Durkheeb's work, and I am very much excited and very much looking forward to reading more of his work, especially his poetry. I think he's definitely a writer that I'm always going to be looking forward to reading whenever any of his works come out. So new all-time favorite author for sure. And now the next category is best short stories. I have not actually read much short stories this time around, which I'm a little bit sad about actually. And I've only really read and finished reading one short story collection, an anthology or even, that I actually think that was actually really good. And that is Time Travelers, an anthology of Palestinian speculative fiction edited by Sonia Soleiman. This one is, again, an anthology of speculative fiction written by Palestinian authors and writers from across the diaspora. And I really enjoyed this one. As far as anthology is concerned, I have found myself more inclined to short story collections since they're from the same author, less so to anthologies, because more often than not, I have found that certain short stories just don't hit as well for me, or even just completely miss. But this one was actually pretty consistent, at least for me, on the content. I really did enjoy a lot of these authors' writing, and I found even some few new favorite short stories for me. Now let's move on to the next category with best mystery. I haven't really read much mystery this time around. And if I did, I have not found many mysteries that I actually would think would fit to the best of the year. The only one I have is actually A Crane Among Wolves by June Her. This is a historical mystery that's set in the Joseon in Korea, where we follow Usul, who is trying to bring back her sister that was kidnapped from the Tyrant King. And then we also get to follow the Tyrant King's bastard brother, a prince, Donyeon. Is that his name? Daehyun? I actually forgot his name. And there was also a romance between Usul and the bastard prince. And I actually really like the mystery aspect of it. And I also like the way that how Junher continues to bring this atmosphere and like bring Joseon Dynasty Korea to life, and is not afraid to really show the horrors of that period, especially from like these kings and these princes and all that. But there do fair warning though, there's definitely a lot of talks regarding sexual violence against women, specifically like sexual assault and rape. So if you do end up checking out this book, fair warning on that is definitely pretty prevalent. There's no actual on-page descriptions, but it is heavily mentioned a lot. So fair warning on that. But I did find the mystery aspect here of this book to be really, really good, and I always am looking forward to reading more by Junher in the future. Okay, next category, best science fiction. I have not read as much hard sci-fi as I would have liked, but I have found at least a few that I think were actually pretty good. In fact, actually really great. Like the actual sci-fi I've managed to pick up this year were actually like really good. And I'm really glad for that. So first up, I do have War Girls by Tochi Onyebuchi. This is the first book in a YA sci-fi futuristic dystopian duology. I have not finished reading this series. I've only read the first book so far. I do plan though, at least very much early on in 2025, to read the sequel. And I love this. This was just so good. I do recommend the audiobook. The audiobook was actually narrated really well. And I don't know, the way that Tochi Onyebuchi was able to take a historical event like the Biafran War of 1967 to 1970 and turn it into a futuristic setting was so unique. Like when I would think of something like a take into the Biafran War, I would think maybe something more historical, but it was able to take something historical and turn it into the future. And also talk about child soldiers, and the way that he's talked about it was just so, it was just written so well, and I just love it so much. And I don't understand why I did not read the sequel yet. And then another book also that I found that is actually really good for sci-fi is Toward Eternity by Anton Hur. This is actually his debut novel. Anton Hur is a translator from like Korean to English, and I have not read any of his works that he's translated, but this is the first book of his that I've definitely read, and this was actually really good. It's also short. It's a queer sci-fi speculative kind of novel that we kind of go through across time and even space in a way, and I just really like the way that he pretty much explored the evolution of humanity, and also just what it really means to really be human in a time of when you're able to modify yourself as a human being and what that would mean for humanity itself. It's just really good, and I really do recommend checking it out. Now, next up, best horror/thriller. I have not read enough horror for it to be its own category. I have not read enough thriller to be in its own category either. So I'm kind of just mix and matching the two here. So first up, I do have Delicious Monsters by Liz Alsambari. This is more horror. It's like a psychological horror, maybe even a little bit thriller-like. And it does deal with some pretty heavy topics. It did take me a while to read this one. I really did enjoy it. I mean, I enjoyed it because it was a good story, but ooh, was that dark, y'all. It was dark. So the author does provide content warnings in the very beginning, but definitely take your time with this one. It is very much messed up. It's messed up. Like, damn, it took me a while. I even wanted, there's a part of me that wanted to DNF, but I'm glad that I did not DNF because it was actually really good. And I do recommend for you to check it out, even though it's really dark. So yeah. And next up, I also do have Compound Fracture by Andrew Joseph White. This one is also horror, but it's a little more like thriller leaning as well. That takes place in Appalachia. And again, we have a trans autistic teenager who actually survives a hate crime attack against him. And he's just trying to pretty much get retribution for what happened to his family and a few other families when they died in a mining incident. So yeah, it's a lot. There's actually a lot going on here. It has a bit of gory bits, just like I still enjoy. I do like me some body horror and a little bit of gore. Andrew Joseph White just knocks it out of the park again. Like, this is my favorite of his work so far. And he continues to just be an author that I always trust to write really good young adult horror. It's graphic, it's gruesome, it's gory, there's a lot of body horror, but like, the way he writes it, I'm just glad that all of his works just exist for teenagers and maybe some young adults who would want to read a story following a queer, trans, autistic teen just trying to survive in a world that does not want them to exist, but they continue to do so. And also, this book is really more like community driven as well. Like, despite the fact that like the main character's family doesn't quite understand like his transness quite as much, but they are still there to really support him because like they just know and understand like, hey, this is a person that we care about who is hurting or is being targeted. Like, let's support him, let's help him. And I really appreciate that, especially in these trying times. You know, you need a book like that. So very much happy that a book like this exists for the young adult audience. All right, next category is best literary fiction. I have read a little bit more literary fiction this year, and I'm actually really glad for it. I have found that there are some lit fic books out there that really will work for me, and the two I have on here are like debut novels. Child, I found some real good ones, so I had to put these two here. So first up, I do have Martyr by Khalidi Akbar. This is a queer contemporary lit fic where we're following an Iranian American man named Cyrus. And he's pretty much had this obsession with martyrs, pretty much. And he does have some, I think, suicide ideation. So definitely look up content warnings for sure. But there's definitely suicide ideation and all that. And drug use, if I remember correctly. But I really love the writing here. I truly, truly love the writing. And I also like the character work in this book as well. I've been blanking a little bit on here because I really do want to reread it. Because honestly, I read this book via audio and it was so good. I recommend the audiobook of this book. I do find a bit, there were parts. There's parts like towards the end that kind of lost me because it would have been a 5-star, but this book though was really good as far as like literary fiction. Like this was so good. I want Khalidi Akbar to write more books. And also for this category, I do have Blessings by Chukwu Ebuka Ibe. This one is written by a Nigerian author, and I'm very, very happy to have one on this in this particular category. This was just so good. It definitely deals with like a gay boy who realizes he's gay without actually using the word gay, honestly, and he gets sent into a Christian boarding school. So yeah, that's just great. But we also do have an aspect of the story too that we follow his mother as well. Like her story, I do appreciate having that particular perspective in the story as well. But yeah, this was just so good. I love the writing. I don't know, I just want more people to read more of Blessings. Like, I need more people to check it out, you know? Now, the next category, I'm actually surprised that I even have this category for 2024 Book Awards. But I'm glad it's here. And it's Best Historical Fiction. And I do own both the books that I have for this category. So I do have Masquerade by Oo Songoyomi and The Seventh Veil of Salome by Silvia Moreno Garcia. So, Masquerade is a debut novel. This one's like a very loose Hades Persephone novel that has Yoruba mythology in here. It's very much, again, the whole Hades Persephone retelling part is very, very loose. There's definitely like character inspirations in regards to that story that I'm not familiar with, so I can only say so much, but I really enjoyed this one. I do recommend the audiobook. The audiobook production and the narration was really, really good, so I definitely do recommend it, and I'm very much excited to check out more books from this author whenever she writes more books, because this was such a great debut, like one of the best debuts I've read this year, y'all. So good, highly recommend. And then The Seventh Veil of Salome, this is my first Silvia Moreno Garcia work, and I'm so excited that I checked this book out. Like, I don't know, I really like the atmosphere. I love Silvia Moreno Garcia's writing. Her writing was so good, y'all. And I also really like this Hollywood, like these, is it 1950s? Yeah, 1950s Hollywood, yes. And we even get like a perspective as well and time period of Salome herself, and that's pretty much based on like the movie that they're making as well. It was just so good. Highly recommend. Also, I do highly recommend as well the audiobook. The audiobook, y'all, so good. And that's actually a book that was an audiobook production that did really good with like having multiple narrators. That part, phenomenal. I highly recommend. I highly recommend both these books for the way that they handle their historical settings and all that, and the perspectives. All that was so good. I highly, highly recommend both of these books if you have not checked them out already. All right, next category is Best Contemporary Fiction. So as far as contemporary fiction is concerned, it's a little bit hard what books I should even put on this category, because I'm like, okay, well, what's actually strictly more contemporary? So there's definitely books that are like contemporary, but they're romance, and I'm like, I will put that rather in a romance category than the contemporary category. And there's also books that are contemporary and literary fiction, and I'm just like, well, I don't want to quite, I had to figure out which one I will put in here. So as far as contemporary fiction is concerned, I really have like a young adult book in here because it was really strictly like contemporary fiction. So I do have The Lesbiana's Guide to Catholic School by Senora Reyes. This was a really good book, and I really got to check out Senora Reyes's other work, which is called, what was it, the Luis Ortega Survival Club or something. I definitely gotta check that one out. But let's be honest, guys, the Kettle Skull, y'all, this was so good as a YA queer contemporary. I love the main characters. I really enjoy the writing. I did listen to it via audio. Highly recommend checking out the audiobook if you have not checked it out already. And I also really like the way that the author handled like some pretty sensitive topics, honestly. Not just like doing like lesbophobia, homophobia, but also doing with like suicide. Just to let you know, there's topics on regarding suicide or suicide ideation and attempt. All that stuff is in that book, so fair warning if you want to check it out. But this book though was just so good. I really loved following Yami, I think that's the main character's name, following her and like her troubles and all that. It was just so good, and I definitely want to check out more from this author in the future. Next up is Best Romance. I have definitely read more romance novels this time around, whether it's contemporary romance, fantasy romance. Most of it has been okay, mediocre, but I have found a couple like really good romances. And one of them is Outdrawn by Deanna Gray. This one's an adult sapphic rivals to lovers romance, and I really enjoyed the romance aspect here. Like the actual rivals to lovers, like I can actually understand these two main characters to be rivals, and then I understood their romantic progression, that it made it believable how they went from rivals to being romantically attracted to each other and then lovers. I really love the progression of all of that, and also I found the plot and the other characters to be interesting enough, and I do recommend it. I do not own a copy of it physically, but I do own the ebook, so I'm very glad I have it on my Kindle now. And then next up, I also do have 12th Night by Alexine Farrell-Fulmuth. This one is a young adult contemporary romance that is pretty much a retelling or even like a reimagining of 12th Night by Shakespeare. I'm not familiar with the original play, but I have found this romance to be quite endearing. I have seen this a little bit like, is it enemies to lovers? I don't like using enemies to lovers when it comes to contemporary romance, but let's just say these are two people that don't actively get along with each other, only for them to end up getting along with each other. And it does deal with also like gaming and fandom and stuff. Like I know she's wearing like a whole suit of armor and stuff with a sword, but she does play a video game character that has like a knight, that's like a knight. So yes, I really love it how the author was able to write that, like talking about being a woman or a young girl in like fandom spaces that like tend to be dominated by men or young boys. It's always irritating. Oh my gosh. And I definitely felt her though about fandom culture and like being, and then boys just it's just irritating, but I definitely felt for her. And I also found the main guy here to be endearing as well, and it all makes sense. I was just really glad in how the author was able to handle certain things and their plot progression and the romance itself. Adorable, and I'm here for it. Next category, I mean, I don't think it's a surprise for this next category, but it's fantasy. The best fantasy books. I've read a lot of fantasy, y'all. A lot. And I really had to narrow it down as far as which fantasy books I will put on here, because I didn't want to necessarily put in like some pretty obvious authors on here. I wanted to showcase a little bit some more newer authors, because if I have like the exact same authors like year after year, especially when they come with a new release, then like when we get to like the best fantasy, it just gets really bit boring. Good reads. But anyways, I just wanted to have something a little where I have a chance to like showcase a little bit of different authors that I've read this year that I'm like, you know, this was actually really good. So I have Ray Bear by Jordan Fueco, and I do have The Adventures of Amina Al-Sarafi by S.A. Chakraborty. So Ray Bear, this is a young adult fantasy. This is the first book in a duology. I love this one, okay? This was so good, and I did also listen to it via audio, which is narrated by Jonice Abbott-Pratt, who I love whenever she be narrating books, okay? I love Jonice Abbott-Pratt's narration, okay? Whenever she narrates a book, I'ma listen. But this book though, oh my gosh, so endearing. This really is like a really good young adult fantasy series, y'all. Like, if you want a young adult fantasy series and you have not checked this series out, I highly recommend checking this series out. Please do. The Adventures of Amina Al-Sarafi, oh my gosh. This is like historical fantasy, okay? And this is the first book, and I think it's supposed to be a trilogy. We don't have a sequel yet, but I'm here for it. I really am here for it. And I also loved the audiobook. I read this one via audio, and I'm so glad I got a physical copy, because I really want to continue on with the series whenever we get a second book. And then the next category, which if you were here last year, I did include this category as like one of the things I actually find to be at least make things interesting, and that is best genre blend. Now, what does that mean? It pretty much just means the best of books that were able to combine two or more genres together. And I am one of those people who love reading books that combine genres. Whether that is like maybe fantasy romance, maybe it's sci-fi fantasy, maybe it's historical fantasy, you know, stuff like that. Or maybe fantasy horror, maybe sci-fi horror, or literary horror, you know, like things like that. To be fair though, as far as genre blends and because of my particular taste, more often than not, I find genre blends that blend in with fantasy more so than like other kind of genres, like non-speculative genres, not so much. But I really do like it though when we get from like one speculative genre versus and then mix in with the non-speculative genre. You know what I mean? I like when those things blend together. So one of those books is Rake's Fall by Vajra Chandrasekhara. I do know that I did an e-arc thanks to the publisher, and I will just say this was definitely a weird book. Not gonna lie, it was weird. Did I fully understand everything that happened in that book? No, I really did not. But I really found it to be so fascinating that I'm like, I need more people to read this book. I need people to just check it out, just give it a shot. And I do recommend the audiobook because I also was hybrid reading with the audiobook as well. Because I do own the audiobook. And I do recommend checking out the audiobook. It was well produced. I do appreciate the narration and the production of it as well. But yeah, this was just a weird, like, it was a very much a blend of a lot of things, honestly. There was sci-fi elements, there was fantastical elements, there was parts of it that was horror leaning. There was even parts of it that I felt was a little bit more like historical even, which is like, how is that possible? I don't know. It was just really, really weird, but it was just so good and how weird it was. You know, like it's one of those books like I think I need to reread in order to understand what I just read. And I actually kind of appreciate the book for it. And then next up, I do have The Tainted Cup by Robert Jackson Bennett. This is a mixture of fantasy and mystery. This book, y'all, was really, really good. I actually have a dedicated reading vlog of this book if you have not checked it out already. And I did also annotate it as well because I just had such a fun time reading The Tainted Cup. I think this is a book that if you're interested in if you're interested in mysteries and you're a fantasy reader, check this out. If you're a mystery reader and you're interested about checking out a fantasy, check this out because this is set in like a biopunk world and it has a very prevalent mystery. Like it's an actual blend of mystery and fantasy. It's a secondary world. In a biopunk world, the fantasy elements is very important to keep track of in order to understand the mystery here, but it also falls through with like the mystery plot beats as well. Like I truly believe it's like a strong mixture between a mystery and a fantasy, and I think both mystery and fantasy readers will really enjoy this one. I think a few already have, so highly recommend if you've not checked it out already, and I do look forward to reading the sequel, which is A Drop of Corruption when it comes out next year. Now last, but certainly not least, for sure, this is the best, honestly. And we're talking about the best book of the year. What is the book that I will give a trophy of best book of the year award? You know, the book of 2024. And honestly, it was a little bit hard, honestly, to figure out what that best book was because I didn't find any particular book initially to be a clear winner like previous years. Like Babel and like The Spirit Coasted Water. I think those were books that like obviously were the best books. But this time around, it was harder actually. So I consulted with CallPile just to see through the CallPile ratings on which ones were like the highest rated. And honestly, when I saw the highest rated one, I realized that, you know what? It's fitting. It truly fits the book. And I think it really captures the best book of the year. And that book is Squire by Sarah Alfaghi and also Nadia Shamas. This graphic novel is so good, y'all. It is really good. It's a young adult fantasy graphic novel. And it's written by a Palestinian American and also illustrated by a Jordan American, if I'm remembering correctly. Yes, Nadia Shamas, Palestinian American, Sarah Alfaghi, Jordan American. Yep, got it. So yeah, if you have not checked out Squire, check this out. Like it definitely has heavy inspirations regarding the occupation, the settler colonialism, the settler occupation of Palestine. It definitely has some stark influences of that. But the way that this is drawn and the art and the paneling and all that, characters, it's so good, and it's just something I really wish more people actually really would check out if you have not checked it out already anyways. But yeah, I've been screaming to the rooftops about this book for so long that I hope that a lot of you have checked it out or at least been able to borrow from your library and maybe you want to check it out for 2025 and beyond. I just recommend this graphic novel. This is definitely one of the best books I have read this year. And I do hope that both of these, the author and the illustrator, maybe write some more graphic novels. Maybe not in the same world, but just more graphic novels kind of like this. Or just, I don't know, whatever. Like, I'm here to read anything by Nadia Shamas, okay? And anything illustrated by Sarah Alfaghi. Like, please. I need more, okay? I need more. But this is definitely one of the best books that I've read this year. And that is it, y'all. That's all I really have for y'all for today. Yeah, those were the best books I've read this year. I've definitely read a lot of pretty good contenders. And I am hopeful and really optimistic to find some even more great, more all-time favorite books for 2025. So, you know, like the video if you like it. Comment down below y'all's thoughts on any of the books and any of these categories. Do y'all have, like, what are y'all's best books, actually? Let's start there. What are y'all's best books of 2024? Anything memorable? Anything really, really good? All-time new favorites? All the things? Whether in the categories that I presented here to y'all or in your own categories, I'm curious. Just let's chat about it in the comments down below. If you're new here, you like my vibe, you want to maybe follow for some more videos from me, consider subscribing if you want to. And if you made it this far into the video, you're not really sure what to say, but you want to leave me an emoji to let me know you're here, leave me a trophy emoji or like a medal emoji. Any of those emojis will work for me. And again, thank you all for coming on to this video, and I hope to see you on my next one. Bye.